Welcome into another episode of the KFG Pod. I'm your host, Nick Mayu, as always, and your commissioner of this lovely league. Today, we get a special guest, Kyle Cactus Bartus. Welcome into the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. I think it's been a year and a half since I was last on, so
Yeah, and I was
you know.
going to say, actually, I think this is the first time it's just us. I believe the last time you were on, you had your brother, Justin Bartus, with us. So it'll be good to get just us two. Not only that, Kyle joins us as the only other 2-0 team in the league. Figured it's worth a mention 2 weeks in that Kyle Cactus and I stand as the last two undefeated teams to talk about the league.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's I think it goes without saying I got the best defense in the league. My opponents just don't score, so hope to keep that up
Yeah,
coming
that's
up.
we've seen our top defenses. It works out to get you into the postseason, but hopefully you'll get some more points rolling. Um, well, Cactus joins us, as you know, he's our matchup preview guy. But Kyle and I have something different, a little plan for you guys today. We're gonna do a joint power rankings as well as a little matchup preview for everyone. Sound good?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, perfect. We'll get into it with our first matchup and first teams of our segment and of today. We have our Thursday night football matchup of Emmett and Greg. Let's talk about Greg first. I have Greg ranked as my number two in my power rankings. I had him ranked two last week. I stand by. I'm pretty sure Bartus had him ranked two in the beginning of the year. I think it's just a fair spot for Greg to be in. He's second in scoring so far. I think his team has such a high floor. When you have guys like McCaffrey, you have Henry, you have Pat Mahomes. I think he's done a nice job filling out the rest of his roster, and he's picked up a nice addition in Hunter Henry, who can hopefully be his tight end play because the Kyle Pitts thing is not working out. I think he's got some okay to decent wide receiver depth as well. Guys like Debo, guys like Pittman, guys like Godwin. Filled it out nicely with Cooper and Tutu Atwell as well. So I think it's got a good balance, a good mix, and just an overall high floor, which we've seen so far. Where do you have Greg, and anything to add as well?
You covered a lot of it. I also have Greg as number two. Like you
Yeah.
said, he is the second leading scorer in the league.
Mm-hmm.
1-1. It just so happens that I think he was the first the team week one that he would have beat anyone except for his opponent. So he caught a bad break there. But like you said, he's got Patrick Mahomes, best QB in the league, McCaffrey, who's basically the number one running back in the league. Um, Debo and Chris Godwin, they are just consistent, at least 12 points, which is you say that and it's not really a good number, but the way that the league has been this year, it's good to have consistency.
Yep.
And like
Definitely.
you said, Hunter Henry was a huge pickup for him because at a tight end spot, that's we always know it's barren. There's nothing there. He tried to go with the Kyle Pitts experiment, and as we've seen, someone you got to give up on the dude. He's cooked. It's been 2 years already. You got to give up on Kyle Pitts. So Hunter Henry was a great pickup for him. Maybe his long-term starter for the position. We'll see. But yeah, I think Greg really filled out his team well. Like you said, he's got some depth at receiver too. So yeah, I have him at two. He's very strong team.
Yeah. Agreed as well. We'll jump it over to the other side now to Emmett, where I have Emmett ranked as my eighth spot. Right in that bottom. I found it hard towards the bottom of the power rankings that I felt like a lot of teams were so similar that even our 5-6 area were replaceable by anyone in our 8-9-10 spot. So I felt like it was very close knit. I got Emmett down here. I do like his team. Uh, I love the youth, and I think you're starting to see them kind of shine a little bit. Addison's starting to get more targets. Kenneth Walker seems like the guy in Seattle. There's no problem with Charbonnet being there. Olave, he's getting his target count up. He's getting his reception count up. Hopefully, he gets more of a rapport with Derek Carr. And then you saw Drake London have a good week last week, which is always good to see. It's tough in Atlanta to get the receiving work, as we've talked about across the side with Greg. But good to see that. I think as the year goes on, Brees Hall will hopefully get more carries. I'm not sure last week with the touches. But for the time being, I love Nico Collins right now. Houston's always has to throw, so it's good to have that be working out. Other than that, I mean, Emmett's the only team without a quarterback, really. Kirk Cousins is the QB1 though on the year. I don't think it's going to work out forever, but he is the number one right now, and he has that stack with Addison and Jefferson. So maybe Emmett does have something going there. But I got Emmett at 8, and I do like the youth, and I think as time goes on, we could see him kind of climb the rankings just a little bit.
Yeah, and I got Emmett as my number 9, but like you said, it was really splitting hairs as we went along the 5 to 10 spots. Like you said, you were talking about Kirk Cousins. Like the dude's schedule is just it's amazing for a QB. So that's the thing with him. It's like whether you think he's a good QB or not, the dude always produces in fantasy. Just ask Barrera last year. Like it worked out for him. He's got the number. Like, do we even have to talk about Justin Jefferson? Like the dude is absolutely insane. Like he's got 150 yards in each game so far. He's got 24 points each game without a touchdown. That's unbelievable. Like you said though, Jordan Addison, big playability. He's got a touchdown in each game, which is nice. Shows that he's got that connection with Kirk Cousins. Like you said, the rapport with Olave and Carr is building, so that's good for him as well. I like Laporta. I think that he took a gamble on him, and it's worked out. Goff seems to like him. Mm-hmm. And Ken Walker, like you said, like the reason I passed on him a lot in some of my drafts is just because Charbonnet was there, and he was supposed to have like a big impact on the running back room, but it seems to be the contrary. It seems like Kenneth Walker has locked that RB1 role down, and he's not giving it up. So
I think Emmett has a nice team, and I think it's going to get better as it goes on. He runs into a tough matchup with Greg. You know, I'll let you take it over here. Who do you like in this matchup? What are you looking for? Let me get a little preview from you.
So this may come as a shocker. I actually have Emmett beating Greg this week. Wow. I know that's a little bit odd, but I'll explain why I have that. So, as I was going through like the matchups and everything like that, like granted, Greg has some great matchups like McCaffrey, no offense, is going to run all over the Giants defense. Mahomes should. Yeah, I know it's Giants fans all over. I'm sorry. Mahomes should eat against Chicago. But then you look at the rest. Like Hunter Henry's got a stingy Jets defense coming up. Pittman's going against Baltimore. While they did get cooked by T. Higgins, like let's not act like Pittman is T. Higgins. Chris Godwin's going against Philly. Like it's not looking good for that. But then you look at the other side. Kenneth Walker should run all over Carolina's defense. Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, and Kirk Cousins going against the Chargers, who have by far the worst secondary I've seen this year. It's brutal. So I really like Emmett's matchups a lot, and that's kind of the reason why I have him beating Greg. I have the score right now at 142.9 Emmett, 129.5 Greg.
Wow, so a big win for Emmett. You have.
Okay. I expect an explosion of points thanks to those Vikings he's got on that roster there.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge upset nonetheless. When I was looking at it for the power rankings and just looking at his team, I saw those matchups and I was like, wow. Just ETN, I'm not sure if you mentioned ETN as well, but against Houston, which is just always a smash matchup.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Chargers defense is non-existent, especially in that passing game. We've seen everyone torch him up so far. The matchups are definitely on Emmett's side. We'll see if they can come together to pull off this big upset on Greg that you have. I'd love to see it. We'll move right into our next matchup, which is our 1 o'clock matchup, and it's going to be Shijin and myself. I'll let you talk about my team first, so I feel like you could add more as someone who's on the outside. So where did you have me ranked this week in the power rankings?
I mean, I think it goes without saying. I had you at number 1. I mean, your team's absolutely on fire, and like you added Zach Moss, who Jonathan Taylor or not, the dude's just producing. Like as long as he holds that running back 1 role, he'll get the work. And you added Kyron Williams, like he might be a league winner. That's how I see Kyron Williams right now. Is that Cam Akers just getting like a healthy scratch, and then he's going to get traded. He just steps into that role, and now I think he has the top most receptions by running back this year. Kyron Williams. So that alone is very nice. But then that's not even talking about your best players. That's just talking about your pickups. Like you got Justin Herbert, who's and Keenan Allen. I love the Charger stack. I myself am a big Keenan Allen fan. I've been that way for a while now. People keep saying like, oh, he's not going to be as good because of last year, and then he just proved everyone wrong with that performance last week. So Garrett Wilson, I think, will be better. There's no Aaron Rodgers, but Zach Wilson loves him, so he will keep targeting Garrett Wilson. And Bijan is just a force of nature, man. I really can't like explain how shameful I am to think that it was going to be any other way. He is a beast.
I
As someone who saw that firsthand against the Packers last week, like
I enjoy watching him play. Just anytime
yeah,
I watch a lot of Red Zone during the 1 o'clocks. Giants haven't played at 1 yet, so I've been watching a lot of Red Zone. And when I do, they always pull up a Bijan highlight or a current run, whatever. And oh man, I love watching it come together. And I know we're getting a little sidetracked just talking about Bijan, but
no, of course, yeah,
the way he just makes those defenders miss, man. That one Packers run, I think it was that screen pass where he made like
yep,
four guys miss, and he didn't even cross the line of scrimmage yet, and then
nope.
bolts it out for like a 15-yard run. Oh, it's awesome. It's funny
Oh,
because I drafted Garrett Wilson to be like a top 5 wide receiver, like drafting for the upside, and yet
mhm.
he's my like worst player on my team at this point. And
Yeah,
there's nothing to take away from him because he's still having a decent year so far because of the 2 touchdowns. If I could go back in time, I obviously wouldn't have taken him knowing the injury, just because I don't think that top 5 upside is there anymore. But I still think he could be top 10 as long as Zach
oh
Wilson
yeah,
could kind of get it together and they get through this rough stretch of schedule. I have myself at 1 as well, to no surprise. I think I earned it a little bit through the first 2 weeks, being the top scorer, putting on that monster week, and I agree with everything you said. That Chargers stack hopefully continues and is nice. We'll cross over. I don't want to spend too much time talking about my own team. I could sit here all day. We'll cross over to the other side for Shijin, where I have Shijin ranked at 7. Um, I Again, it was tough splitting hairs with a couple of these teams. I think Shijin's team will be fine. I like Tony Pollard's been a beast. Austin Eckler was injured last week, so getting him back and healthy, he might be out another week, maybe even another 2 weeks. We don't know. So if Shijin can kind of hold on to things, he did draft for that depth with Rashad White and Alexander Madison, even though those haven't been smash plays yet. The volume is there for both of them at the moment. They're the only guys in those backfields that's getting any touches. So at least you got a higher floor-ish play with them. I don't see them as a smash play where they're going to go off, but maybe they have a nice little ceiling where they can get you, that 8 to 12 range and kind of keep you afloat. I do love Tony Pollard. I think he's a beast and will probably be a top 5 back for the rest of the year. He gets all the work in Dallas, and Dallas, with the way they've been leading in all these games, are just going to keep relying on that run game. I think Shijin's wide receivers is where you start to fall off a little bit. DK possibly injury, but him and T. Higgins were just all or nothing plays. You saw it literally come to fruition with T. Higgins had 0, and then he gets off and has 29 points. So
yep.
I think it's going to be an up and down year at wide receiver for Shijin. So hopefully when he gets those smash weeks, he can get into the win column. So I think he has a decent enough team around it to kind of keep himself afloat. And hopefully when those wide receivers do have those smash plays, he can kind of pick off the wins there. But I'd like to see him hopefully develop some depth as well as the year goes on, because it's not great on the bench. I don't know if you have anything to add and where you have Shijin ranked as well.
Yeah. Same as you, I have Shijin ranked 7th. I think that's purely based off of his running back duo. I
Mm,
think that Pollard and Eckler, it's really competing with Greg as the best running back duo in the league, and it's like no one else comes close to those two like together.
yeah.
Like you said, like the biggest question I think for Pollard coming into the year was whether he can handle that running back one workload, because like he was always splitting with Zeke, and I think Pollard has shown that he could do more than that. And he, like you said, like top 5 upside. I think he's going to be like top 3
Yeah.
at the end of the year. Eckler is just Eckler. We don't even have to talk about it. Like as long as Eckler's healthy, he's gonna score like 20 points. Like he just catches the ball and runs it into the end zone every single game. It's without a doubt. Like you said though, the wide receivers you do want to see a little bit more consistency. As a former DK Metcalf owner, he can get you like a consistent 12, which isn't bad, but it's not what you want from your wide receiver one for
Yeah.
sure. And T Higgins, I think almost the definition of boomer bust. The
Mm-hmm.
dude, like you said, 0 and then 29 points. That is hot and cold as it gets. So he just needs, like you said, needs a little more consistency, especially with who he has behind him. I see Elijah Moore, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney. He did lose Deontay Johnson, so that's something that like is worth noting. He would have had him,
Yep.
but
Fair.
it's the depth is not there right now. And we're not like we could talk about his tight end position too. There is not a great answer there. No offense, Shish. Like Dalton Kincaid, not yet, bro. Dynasty maybe, but he's not the answer just yet. Njoku and Ertz, maybe they're like a plug and play guy. It's not that bad. And if your roster's good outside of that, that's not the issue. Like we'll talk about another team later that has a weaker tight end, but has pieces around it to kind of salvage that.
Mm-hmm.
And Tua, like he's chosen Tua over Deshaun. And I kind of talked about it in my write up for the power rankings. Tua's great, but I looked at his schedule, and if Sunday night is any indication of how he plays against like tougher defenses, he's got a long season ahead of him. Like if that's how he's playing against New England, like he still has to play against the Jets twice. He has to play against Buffalo twice, and he has to play against the Jets again. He has Dallas later in the year. It's going to be tough for him for sure.
It's funny as well with Tua when you talk about it. He actually had more points in the first half than he finished with. So his
Yep.
second half was actually worse. Like it brought him down and he had negative points. Yeah, I mean, I'm also a former DK Metcalf owner. I had him a couple years ago. I think the year before you had him. So I've been there as well. Yeah, hopefully he can get some consistency rolling. I don't want to talk down on my opponent too much. I know the fantasy gods are listening and might spite that. But let's hear what you have for this matchup as well.
All right, so I actually I'll go into more depth about like the teams and the matchups, what I like, and then I'll talk about my score.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily like Tua against Denver just because of the secondary. I think they're good, and especially the way that defensive linemen keep getting to Tua and sacking him. I think that Randy Gregory or anyone on that D line will have a field day with him. Tony Pollard's Tony Pollard. He's going to do well. Rashad White might struggle against Philly. I like DK and T. Higgins matchups. We'll just see if Joe Burrow can keep it consistent with throwing the ball. And I actually do like Madison. Like Madison hasn't done a lot with his touches, but I do like him against the Chargers. I think this is a get right game, honestly, for him. But we shall see. As for your team, Bijan against Detroit might be tougher than the past two matchups he's had, but he's Bijan. He's gonna do well. Kyron against Chicago, Cincy, I do like. Mark Andrews against Indianapolis. I think Lamar will lean on him a little bit more, especially after I think he lost Odell for this week. I don't
I
think
don't know
they.
if he's officially out or not, but I know he did
Yeah,
get injured.
yeah. So I think Lamar will rely on him a little more, especially having him back. It's kind of nice. And Keenan is just going to tear up Minnesota. It's just not. It's not even fair at this point. It's a cheat code. So as for scores, I have you beating Shiz. You're my highest scorer at 148.8 this week. Against Shiz, I have him at 135.2.
So a high scoring affair. I know Cactus, you love to do the high scoring matchups. You think highly of all of us, which I'm sure we all appreciate. But all right, so
In
you
the
have
past
me
2 weeks,
taking the
proved it
edge
wrong.
similarly to ESPN. Your score was similar, just a little bit higher on both sides.
Right.
Perfect. Well, let's get into 425 if you're good with this matchup.
Yeah. I think I kind of went over everything I needed to there.
Perfect. 425. We got Josh and we got Drew. Anyone you're dying to talk about first?
Well, honestly, I guess we'll start with Josh. Dude really dodged the bullet with the Saquon injury. It went from him being out a couple weeks to him being a game time decision on a short week,
which I
which
think is
is
ridiculous. There's no.
that's just
I
insane.
still think there's no chance he plays on Thursday.
Sit the guy. Like, what's the point of you playing him if you're gonna have him like if it's really that much of an issue that he's gonna be out a couple weeks, sit the guy for a week. You're not gonna beat the 49ers.
Yeah.
Like just have him sit. But anyways, going with Josh's team, I still like Monra. I think he's going to be a top 7 at the very least wide receiver on the end of the year. Trevor Lawrence is going to be better. Last week is not a good indication, even though it was a good matchup. Just couldn't get anything going against KC, probably because of Chris Jones coming back. Calvin Ridley also will come back. He's going to have a good year. And Michael Thomas, slant boy, is showing a little former strength that he's not used to. So that's a little interesting. Besides Saquon, though, the running backs are just I'm sorry, Josh, but they are. Najee is not the guy. Jaylen Warren has taken over that backfield, and it's been 2 weeks. Like it's bad. Darren Waller will be better though. I do like Ayuk as a flex play. So I actually have going into the power rankings, I have Josh as my 6. So like we said, like it's really just kind of splitting hairs in terms of who's going on from the 5 to the 10. But I do have Josh as my 6th spot for my power rankings.
Fair enough as well. I originally had Josh at my 5, and then when I went back and went through everyone's team one last time, I actually dropped Josh, and I am with you, and I have him in my 6. It's the running back room for me, same as you. If Saquon was healthy, I like Josh's team a little bit more, but without Saquon, it's just tough. With I'm sure Joshua Kelly will be the starter again, but he
didn't do much
good.
With it.
And Najee is not really startable. We kind of saw it last year a little bit with Najee, how he just didn't look good, and he was a pure volume guy. He doesn't really explode and doesn't have that explosiveness. It's just all on pure volume, and if he's not getting that volume, he's not going to be that guy. To touch on, I think Josh getting Kamara back will actually help. With all the injuries that have been going on in New Orleans running back room, and the fact that Kendre Miller hasn't even played a game yet for them. They drafted him. They're looking at Tony Jones Jr. right now. Getting Kamara back, I think he'll just come back and be the guy in New Orleans. So hopefully Josh can find a little running back help in a few weeks. I do like Josh's receiver room a little bit, but it has some question marks. You've seen them have their down weeks. You've seen them have their good weeks. So I have Josh at 6. I think it could get better for him, but I see the path right now that it's headed on a downward trend, and I don't like it for him. Hopefully he can get Saquon back and healthy, most likely next week, if the rumors are true about him being actually questionable. And I do like Zay Flowers as well. I'm a big Zay Flowers guy. I think he will be the number 1 wide receiver in that room. So I think Josh,
he is.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Josh has his pieces, but it'd be nice to get some health and luck on his side a little bit moving forward.
For sure.
We'll cross over into Drew, and I have Drew at 10. I don't actually think his team is at 10, but I've been telling him I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to do it. So
yeah,
Drew has the worst team because he is the champ. He cannot succeed this year. So Joe Burrow is not good. He's bad quarterback. Jamar Chase, bad wide receiver. A.J. Brown is not the number 2 in Philly, not even the number 1. No, I don't mind Drew's team. I like it when I look at it, but I like it on paper. And then you look at how they've done, and he's the only team without 200 points in 2 weeks.
Makes no sense.
And you don't know how, because on paper it's a really good team, even with the running back question marks, but I don't think they're that much of a question mark. I think Jerome Ford will be the guy for Cleveland, even though they just signed Kareem Hunt. James Cook is the guy in Buffalo, and I think we all kind of knew that. Other than that, he doesn't really have any other running backs that are worth mentioning, but the wide receiver room is kind of there for Drew. They just haven't performed at all. So
yeah,
I think some big weeks are in the cards for him, but it doesn't matter because he's not going to make the playoffs anyway. I'll let you tell me where you have Drew ranked.
So I have Drew at my 8th spot.
Fair.
it's tough to rank an 0-2 team, especially one as much talent as Drew has. I
Mhm.
really wanted to rank him higher, but he's 0-2. You can't rank him higher than anywhere that I have him right now. Like you said, his team on paper is absolutely insane. I still think he has the best wide receiver group in the league. Like it's insane. But he has underperformed consistently, and it is rough sledding for Drew right now. And like you said, it's probably going to stay that way. Champs don't make the playoffs, bro. It's happened. Look at me, like it happened to me too.
Yeah.
So I think that he will have better weeks, like you said. James Cook is good. I think Damian Harris might eat a little bit into his touchdown production, but he's getting catches. That's really what matters in PPR leagues. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase will be better. It's a given. Like they started 0-2 last year. They're going to be better. Jalen Waddle is hurt, concussion protocol. We'll see how that goes. That might add into Tyreek's production a little bit. Like it'll give him a little bit more, but we'll see how Jalen Waddle ends up. And I am a big Jacoby Myers supporter. I had my stock was high for him this year. He's a former Pats guy in a Pats system with a Pats QB. Like it just works for him. And Devonte Adams is there. Devonte Adams is my guy, but I love Jacoby Myers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have Drew at 8 just because he's 0-2. Like you said, he hasn't even scored 200 points yet, so you can't really rank him
Yeah.
higher than that.
Things can only get better for Drew, you'd hope.
Yeah,
We'll see if Joe Burrow plays too. He is questionable as well with
well,
that
that's
with that
true. Yeah,
injury. ESPN has this one as a monster favorite on one side. Let's hear how you have it and where you see these two teams this week.
So we already kind of talked about how, on paper, Drew's team is very good. I think this is the week where he finally gets right and he finally gets his first win. I'm sorry, Josh, but like if you run out there with those running backs, you're not winning this week. You're not winning with Najee Harris and Joshua Kelly. No offense, I don't care if Calvin Ridley and Trevor Lawrence go for 50 combined. Like, it's not you're not going to win with Joshua Kelly and Najee Harris in those running back spots. So, with that being said, I actually have Drew beating Josh 140 to 126.5. Just because I like Drew's matchups too. I think AJ Brown will get those catches. Like we talked about it. Like AJ Brown might not be. He's competing for the number one spot now, which is crazy to think about. But like he's gonna get the yards against Tampa Bay. I think after that discussion that he had with Jalen Hurts on the sideline last time, he's gonna get the targets today. Hawkinson will eat against the Chargers. Jalen Waddle, if he is healthy, I think he'll do well against Denver because he won't be the one with Patrick Surtain on him. That will be Tyreek. So we'll see how that goes. We already talked about Jacoby. Love Jacoby. And Joe Burrow will get right against the Rams, I think. So, yeah, I have Drew beating Josh by a good amount, I'd say, this week.
This is the most I've ever seen your scores be in terms of I guess separation
Mount.
between the two teams.
Yeah.
You usually have these games like within like a couple points. So to see
Well,
three straight double digit wins for you is surprising for me at least. But ESPN has it the same way, which
Yeah.
I think why it was so tough for me to even put these matchups into spots is just because they already seem so lopsided. But it's fantasy football; anything can happen. I agree that I do think AJ Brown will have a bounce back week, especially after getting into it with Jalen Hurts on the sideline. I could see a 2 touchdown game in the cards for him this week, with maybe some forced throws over there. There was something I was gonna mention, but I kind of lost it. I got myself sidetracked. Oh, about Devontae Smith being the number one, I think he kind of is, and I don't think it's that crazy because as someone that owned AJ Brown last year, for me he was I believe he finished top 5. For me to then pass on him in the second round this year should have been semi-telling because I was talking about it with I believe it was Greg and maybe even Drew and Emmett on draft weekend. I sat down and I was just like, when it got to that point, I was like, I don't, as an AJ Brown owner, like I didn't enjoy having him on my team.
No.
He was great, and I had him in his best season, and I didn't enjoy it because he was so touchdown dependent. Where it wasn't him getting 10 for 120 ever. It was him getting 5 for 50 And if he got the touchdown, you were
Yeah.
happy. If he didn't, you had 10 points. Like, it wasn't anything great. So I think he's always been that, and he still will be. Like, Devontae Smith is the guy that can go 10 for 120. A.J. Brown's
Yep.
the guy that's going to go 7 for
He might have
100,
a long
5 for
touchdown. Yeah.
120, 5 for 50, maybe whatever, but he gets a touchdown. Like, that's what A.J. Brown's been. But I do think he's going to have that bounce back week, and I like to see Drew get into the win column. Not all bad for him, hopefully.
I think we all
Uh,
would.
exactly.
Feel bad for that.
That's a former champ right there, if I've ever seen it. We'll jump into one of our last two matchups, our Sunday night football game. It's Bartus versus Steve. Bartus has had his fair share of kryptonite against Steve, where he hasn't been able to get it done in the history there. Before we get into the matchup, though, we'll get into the power rankings. We'll start with Bartus. I have Bartus ranked as my 5. I actually, again, another team where on paper I feel like I like this team. So I look at Bartus' team and I like the pieces I see. They're not playing up to that yet, but I do like it. I think the Josh Allen stack with Stephon Diggs will always be good. We could ignore week 1 because he struggles against the Jets, and he'll struggle against the Jets the next time they see each other.
Yeah.
But that's one of my favorite stacks to have. I think they'll be so good moving forward. CeeDee Lamb is awesome. He's the receiver I wanted the most. I knew he was never going to fall to me, and I knew I was never going to take him in the first round. But I think CeeDee Lamb is awesome this year. I loved having him on my team. I think Ramondre is fine, and he's good. So I like Bartus's top-heavy pieces so much that I have him at 5 and a little bit ahead of the rest of the pack just because I like his pieces up top. Hopefully Christian Watson, we see him on a football field this year. I don't know what's going on with Dameon Pierce, and I don't know what's going on with Jahan Dotson, because those are 3 names that I loved going into fantasy this year. I didn't get them, and they haven't really been playing well, and I don't really know what's going on there. Hopefully they could get some more plays schemed up for them, and hopefully we can get them on the field. But because I like Bartus' top pieces so much more than some of the other teams, I have him at 5. I'll let you touch on his team a little bit more.
Yeah, I have Justin actually at 4.
Okay.
Like you said, like the top heavy pieces, they just work. I think the Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs stack is the best in the league because you have a top 5 fantasy QB and arguably a top 5 fantasy wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Stephon Diggs is always going to get the work regardless. He has no like you could say what you want about Gabe Davis. He's not eating into any of Stephon Diggs' production. I'm sorry, it's not happening. CeeDee Lamb, like you said, like he's so good.
Yeah.
The only to think about like the fact that his bad week, which wasn't even really a bad week, I think he had like 12 points against the Jets.
Against the Giants. But that's because they were up 80-0 within 2 minutes.
Exactly. So like the fact that he still got 12 points in a 40-0 blowout, like that just goes to show how much Dak likes him. That just goes to show how much he is a part of that offense, and that's great to see. Like you said, Ramondre is great. I thought Zeke would be a little bit more involved, but that has not been the case yet. And I like Ramondre's production based on his touches. Dameon Pierce, I kind of thought that he'd be this way this year. Like,
really,
it's just the way that the Texans' offense works, especially with a rookie QB. They can't move the ball, and when they can't move the ball, they're down early. When they're down early, Dameon Pierce doesn't get points. So,
yeah, that's fair enough. Are you okay over there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Christian Watson, I think he hasn't even played yet, which is definitely a detriment to Justin. I think he'll be better though. Jordan Love definitely likes him. You know, they came up together in the system, so they already have that kind of connection. You saw that in the Eagles game last year. And Tyler Lockett, another boomer bust guy, like we talked about T. Higgins, like Tyler Lockett will end up getting you the points at the end of the year, but it's just a matter of when they come, and they might not be there right away. Yeah. But last week it happened against Detroit, and I think it happened last year against Detroit too. So the tight end position is a little weak. Freiermuth, he hasn't done well just yet, but I think he'll be better. I think it's just a matter of whether Matt Canada figures his shit out. Like, he is just the worst offensive coordinator in the league. So it's just a matter of whether he gets that. And the RB2 position is a little bit weak. Right now he has Algier. Well, he doesn't have anyone in there because he does that thing where he takes everyone out of his roster. But I before I checked, he had Algier in there, which isn't bad. He's still getting some carries, but we talked about how Bijan is already taking over that backfield. So he better just hope that Jonathan Taylor comes back week 5 to
Yeah,
fill that spot.
that'll be good if you can get JT back because we've seen what Zach Moss has been able to do
Yeah, with
in
those
his
carries.
absence and those touches. So hopefully, Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he is a much better uh, running back than Zach Moss is. We'll jump across the way, and I'm assuming you're gonna have the opposite of what I have for this, but I have Steve as my number 4. I had Bartus at 5. I have Steve at 4. So for me, I just faced Steve, and after having him a little bit lower, I do like his team a lot. I mean, I think Tyreek Hill might be the undisputed number 1 wide receiver, or I mean, outside of Justin Jefferson, but he might be
Yeah,
the next best wide receiver. He was the only guy that was not the only guy, but he was giving me a hard time passing up on when I was draft season and I was going for Bijan. It was tough for me to have to pass on Tyreek. I'm not upset that I did, but Tyreek is awesome, and I think he will continue to be all year. We've talked about Devontae Smith in the last segment with AJ Brown. Again, I like Devontae Smith, and my favorite late round sleeper to get was Jalen Warren. I didn't end up getting him. Steve took him one pick before I was going to take him, but he was my favorite late round pick because I felt like he could take over. To me, this backfield is so similar to the old days of Eckler and Melvin Gordon when Melvin
yep.
Gordon was there. The only problem is they were actually both relevant, and somehow Najee has lost all relevance. But it's so similar with the small undrafted rookie who just looks better on the field.
Oh my God,
He looks
it's
so much more
just so.
explosive. It's
Yep.
than Najee is. I know. I just heard you say it at the same time. But I like some of the pieces, and I think George Pickens is going to be the guy with Deontay out. I like Deontay a lot going into this year, and I thought George Pickens was more big play uh, dependent, which he still kind of is, but I think he's going to get a lot of those targets just because there is no Deontay, and I mean, there's not really anyone else for them to go to, so they will go to Pickens. The biggest question marks are at running back for Steve, where it's Jacobs and Miles Sanders, and we haven't seen them. I mean, this is 2 top 12 fantasy backs last year, and we haven't seen them, crack that this year. They both don't look great, so hopefully he can get them a little bit back to where they were last year. But I like Steve's team here at 4.
Yeah. And you were exactly right. I have Steve at 5 in my
Yep.
power rankings. Like we said, like the running back room, we expect to see more of them. I think Josh Jacobs just had bad matchups the first 2 weeks.
That's
Like
fair.
he started against the Saints. I mean, no, it's not against the Saints, the Broncos, who have
Mm-hmm.
a good D line. Like that's a tough matchup as it is. And then he goes against the Bills, and they're down a lot early on. The
Yeah.
game script just doesn't work out for him.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be better for him. I think he will maybe not like the same level he was last year, where he's getting like 35 just from running,
Yeah.
but he will get some points. You draft him for a reason. Miles Sanders, I'm not really sure because I like Milos. I think he's not bad, but I saw Charbonnet. I mean, not Charbonnet. Hubbard. I
Yeah.
saw Chuba Hubbard play a lot down the stretch in the game that they played recently
Yeah.
against the Saints. We could talk about Tyreek Hill and Devontae Smith all day and how they've really emerged this year. We don't have to go more in depth about it. And I do like George Pickens. He's kind of like when I look at Jordan Addison, really big play guys that I think will end up taking more and more of the offensive snaps that they can. Um, Gabe Davis, he doesn't have him starting right now, but I kind of like him. He's a boomer bust guy too. He could be there, but it's on his bench, so it's not like it's affecting his roster that much.
Yeah.
And Evan Engram is a solid tight end. It's in a position that you have a lot of trouble finding a starter. You have someone that's getting a consistent like 11 points, which isn't really that bad. So yeah,
Yeah.
I have a
I think Steve has
Steve.
lots to be happy about. I had him as a boomer bust team, and I still think he is, but I think his floor is just a little bit higher than I had it last week when I was ranking him. We'll get into this matchup. ESPN has Steve favored by 122 points at the moment. Bartus going with an interesting strategy of just Fryermuth in the lineup.
I don't get it.
So it makes it tough for you to do your matchup previews, trying to figure out who he's actually going to end up playing. But what do you got for this matchup? I'm assuming a little bit closer than ESPN currently has it.
Yeah, so I actually did my matchup previews a little bit before Justin decided to do this strategy that he always does, even though it doesn't do anything for anyone. Like I don't know why he does it, but
You can't let the other
it,
team see who you're gonna play. It's
he can't help
the
himself.
Gannon
It's just
strat.
so extra. It's crazy. But I actually have Justin beating Steve, just based off of like we said, like the Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, they're gonna do what they do. CD's gonna eat. Ramondre against the Jets, I think will be tough, but I think he'll get his catches, which I think is what matters here. Like he will, like Mac Jones will go to him because he'll struggle against the Jets defense. Um, Christian Watson, I don't know if he's going to be playing Christian Watson or Jahan Dotson. He had Dotson in there before.
I guess
I
it just
think he'll end
depends
up,
who plays.
yeah,
If
it really
Watson's
ends up,
playing.
yeah. If Christian Watson is healthy, I think he'll go Christian Watson just
Mhm.
because he wants to see that big playability that Watson had. You know, he had that stretch where he had like 3 30-point games last year. So
Yeah.
the potential is definitely there for Christian Watson. And for Steve, like we said, Josh Jacobs will be better, I think, this week. I think Pittsburgh is, even though it is a tough D line, like with TJ Watt there, the way TJ Watt's playing is crazy. But Miles Sanders, I don't think this is the game for him. I don't think he's going to get back right away. Tyreek Hill's going to do Tyreek Hill things, especially Jalen Waddle's out. He's just going to be the guy. Devontae Smith will do well against Tampa Bay. And Ingram and Christian Kirk, I kind of like against Houston. But I think that Justin will squeak this one out.
Did you say what you had the total score was?
Oh no, I didn't say the scores. I have Justin at 123.5 and I have Steve at 118.2.
Okay, so closer, but your lowest scoring matchup so far.
Yep.
You think it's gonna be a barn burner between our 4 and 5. I like it. I like it. All right, that'll move us into our last but not least, of course, matchup of the week. Monday Night Football. It's Barrera and Kyle, yourself. A little bit of an old school rivalry. I remember when you first entered, Barrera was all about it. He has since been silenced by you. And what has come in recent history. But we got a good matchup here. 2-0 versus 0-2. You looking to stand defeated. Burr looking to get into the win column. I'll talk about your team first. Hopefully I can add some extra insight. I have you ranked as R3. I believe I had you at 3 last week, so no movement there. Just kind of keeping the pace, keep it steady. I like your team. I'd like to see a little bit more from your team. I think we've seen it in 2 weeks where you have this safety. You have a safety net. You have a higher floor. We haven't seen your ceiling yet, like at all. Which I think is what's scary about it is because you're 2-0 and we have yet to see you have a ceiling. Different from my team where we saw my ceiling last week. So I'm all exposed. I'm all out there. We haven't seen yours yet. But getting Kelsey back, that's always a good thing. You know, him and Devontae Adams, I think are your pieces right there. They're going to be fine, but we haven't seen those explosive weeks even from Hurts. We just haven't seen it yet. And I like that. I like your top guys. You know, I like Kelsey. I like Devontae Adams. I like Hurts. They're all safe to have. You know, you're not going to have those bust weeks where they get you like 4 points. You know, they're consistent 10 plus every time. Hurts obviously is a quarterback, much higher, but you get the point of what I'm saying. I still like DJ Moore, even though Fields is so bad this year. Fields started bad last year and then figured it out. So maybe he'll figure it out again. I still like DJ Moore, though, because he's the only guy in the offense worth throwing to. So I think he could still turn it around. I think Javonte will continue to get more snaps and be a little bit better as time goes on. And you didn't have Aaron Jones last week, and Aaron Jones is an awesome asset to have. So I think it'll be fine. Again, not really a bench worth talking about. But I like where you're starting lineups at least a little bit better than some of the other teams. So I have you at 3, hoping to see a boom week from your team just so we can kind of get an idea of what your team's made of and hopefully not just, you know, these barn burner wins that you keep squeaking out with. I assume you have yourself ranked similarly.
I have myself at 3. Kind of like you said, I actually did some research. My points allowed is 40 points less than the next closest team. Like it's insane that I've been able to pull out these wins
Yeah.
with how much I've scored. Like I think I'm second to last in points scored, and I'm just or maybe third lowest. But still, like I'm managing to eke out these wins. And like you said, like I don't think we've seen the
You're
potential from my
you're
team just
fourth
yet. Like
lowest. Don't hang
I'm
your hat.
fourth
Yeah.
lowest. Okay, okay. I thought I was lower than that.
No.
So like you said, like I don't think we've seen like the full potential of my team just yet.
Mm-hmm.
Javante is going to get more snaps. He's just getting back into the groove. He's getting healthy, and I think Sean Payton's going to realize like I should use my arguably best offensive player. James Conner, there's no competition. It's just a matter of whether the Arizona defense can. I mean, the Arizona offense can actually do something. I'm not confident on Josh Dobbs, but as long as Connor's getting the ball, like he had 100 yards last week, I'm fine with that. Um, like you said, DJ Moore, I think he'll be good. I think he had 16 points last week, if I remember correctly. So I think it's just a matter of Justin Fields finding the time to throw to him and then choosing to throw to him instead of running into the pile like he always does.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce. We don't have to really talk about it. He's going to be the number one tight end by the end of the year. That's a given at this point. We give those looks and it's inevitable. Like I know Hawkinson can challenge it. I
It's
know
Mark
Mark
Andrews' year.
Yeah, we could challenge it all we want. It's Travis Kelce every single year. That's why I drafted him number one. I mean, number five. Aaron Jones, I think, is going to be good if he plays, just because he's just that much more explosive than AJ Dillon. I love AJ Dillon, but like we saw what AJ Dillon did with all those carries last week, and he couldn't really do much against Atlanta, which isn't
Yeah.
even really like
I
if we really think about it, that's not that tough of a matchup.
I just don't think AJ Dillon's it. We've been saying it for like
Yeah,
a couple years now. Where I know you're the Packer fan, so you have a little bit more. You know a
yeah,
little
for
bit
sure.
more than I would, but I just don't think he's it. We've been saying it every year that he's just going to eat into it, and I feel like every time he's had that opportunity with Aaron Jones out, because Aaron Jones does miss a couple games a year, we just
Yep.
have literally not seen it from AJ Dillon.
Nope.
So I don't think there's anything to worry about there, at least.
Yeah. And like you said, no bench at all. Like Juju is not performing and he's already hurt. Jamal Williams will cease to exist
Yep.
after Kamara comes back, especially the way he's been performing. Jameson Williams has not even played a game, will not play a game until week 7, so we'll see how that goes.
Yep.
I do like Jaden Reed though. I think Jaden Reed will be good.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, whether when Christian Watson comes back and how he fits into that offense when their top guy is back. So
Fair enough. We'll cross over here and get into Barrera. I have Burr at 9. I know where you have Burr. just based on doing the math in my head from what we've had. But it's so tough because Burr just lost Chubb, which sucks so much. He has no Chubb, no Cup. So his first 2 picks are non-existent right now. But when Cup comes back, it's almost scary because he has Puka Nakua, who has been the Cooper Cup right now. So when Cup comes back, is he really going to be gaining an extra piece or just replacing Puka Nakua with Cooper Cup? We won't know until it happens, of course. But the biggest problem, honestly, without those injuries has been Justin Fields. You drafted Justin Fields to be a potential top 5 quarterback. You drafted him as what, the 7th quarterback off the board?
he drafted him in the 6th round. I checked, so I
believe he was the 7th quarterback off the board.
Yeah.
I think it was right after he was the last quarterback taken after I took Herbert. So you drafted him to be a top guy and hopefully be better and a potential number 1 guy. And he has been awful. He's just not a good quarterback, but he is a good fantasy quarterback. He has that running upside, so he always has the ability to have a good game. He's just not a good real life quarterback.
No.
So we'll see where that goes. I think Burr's team is due for a win. I'm not the matchup guy, but I still like the pieces on his team. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is just due to break out. I don't know what the Lions are doing. Jahmyr Gibbs looks so much better than David Montgomery. He looks so much better than they're throwing in Craig Reynolds. Like, that's just so stupid to me because I think Jahmyr Gibbs is so much better than them. So it's only a matter of time before Dan Campbell just gives it all to him. Raheem Mostert's been awesome. Brian Robinson's been awesome. Puka Nakua has been awesome. Like, these are the guys that you need, though, when you have guys like Chubb and Cup not playing. You need guys like that to kind of step up, and they have. So hopefully Burr can kind of get it all together with this team of, I don't even know what to call them. I see Russell Wilson starting at quarterback, and I don't even want to get into his quarterback with Fields and Wilson and Geno Smith and that mess that Burr has to deal with. But I'll let you talk about Burr. You have him at 10.
Yeah, I have him at 10, unfortunately. Like, I don't want to rank Barrera at 10. I really do think his team is better than what a 10 spot should be.
Yeah.
But he just lost Nick Chubb. Like, you can't really like sugarcoat that. Like, you lost your number two pick. Like, you lost your top guy at the moment. But the fact that he lost Nick Chubb and still has a solid room of running backs is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, we really, like, we might like nag Barrera for how much he loves running backs, but this time it paid off. Like, this time he has the depth to be able to still kind of like get right. I love Jahmyr Gibbs this week, especially with no David Montgomery. Like, Craig, we could talk about Craig Reynolds taking carries. He's not gonna hold a candle to what Jahmyr Gibbs is gonna do to Atlanta. Yeah. Raheem Mostert's gonna be good until Jeff Wilson comes back. And even then, he might still hold that starting job. We saw that kind of last year where they were both kind of involved somehow. But if he keeps doing well the way he's been doing, he should hold more. It might be more of like a 60-40 split when Jeff Wilson comes back. So we'll see how that goes. I don't love the wide receivers, although I am the biggest Puka Nakua fan in the world, I must say. Like, he's just my guy. I love him so much. But that it really is crazy to think, like, you don't have Kupp, so what do? You grab his clone. Like, Puka Nakua has been the Cooper Kupp clone. That's literally what Kupp would have been doing if he was back. So that's nice. And George Kittle will be better. He's not going to get a consistent 6. We saw that last year. He started slow, and I think he ended up the number 5 tight end on the year. So George Kittle will be better. I think it's just, well, it's kind of the namesake. It's just a Kittle bit of luck. That's all he needs.
All right, let's hear you talk about our matchup here. Do you think you stay undefeated, or do you think Burr gets into the win column this week?
So this one, it's kind of closer than my other matchups, but I still, unfortunately, sorry, Burr, I do have myself winning, just because, like, I don't other than Nakua and Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't really see a lot of the upside in these players and their matchups. Like,
hi everyone, welcome back in. Due to some technical difficulties, Cactus was not able to finish out the segment. He was talking about himself versus Barrera. He kind of touched on that matchup, so you got it all there. I'll give you his final score. He had himself winning 127.9 to 119.9, so another closer matchup, but he's got himself winning. So if you want to see everything out, I'll be posting my power rankings, just the 1 through 10 on the website like I always do, or on ESPN, like on the League Home like I always do. Kyle's actually going to be posting his own power rankings written up and his matchup previews like he always does. So if you missed anything here, you could always catch it written up on the website as well. I'll touch on what my power rankings were just real quick. I had at 10 Drew, 9 Barrera, 8 Emmett, 7 Shigen, 6 Josh, 5 Bartus, 4 Steve, 3 is Kyle, 2 is Greg, and 1 was myself. Let's touch into Fantasy 5 real quick because I know everyone's dying to see how we did. If you didn't know, Bartus and Josh were going head-to-head, and Bartus won. Him and his brother with the best weeks, and that's why they do the Fantasy 5 and the matchup previews, proving that once and for all. Some solid weeks with a lot of people at 3 and 2. Got a couple new entries this week with Shigen and Josh. Thanks, fellas, both at 3 and 2. Nothing to be upset about. Steve at 2 and 3, and Drew with not only going bad for fantasy, going bad with fantasy predictions as well. Greg did not want to write in this week, apparently too busy doing his own score stuff. Can't do 2 things at once. Overall on the year, we see Kyle with the best record at 6 and 4. Drew with the worst at 3 and 7, and then 3 people with only 1 week of entries. Most of us sitting at 5 and 5, so we're all right there. We're all pretty close. It's going well. With no Kyle here, I'm sure he says goodbye. But that'll do it for this episode of the KFG podcast. You know, let's have a good week, fellas. And as always, keep fans great. See ya.